Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here today. I see a lot of familiar faces who they just finished taking an exam, Chancellor, so I think they felt like they needed to show up. So welcome to Inbox Zero, where we're going to be talking about how to manage your communication, your inbox when you get the overwhelming sense of all the notifications start to get to be too much, and then you've got to handle getting back to everybody, and you've got to make sure that communication's clear and you're sharing the things that need to be done. And the one person that I can think of who not only has more emails than anybody else I know, I'm positive of it, but also does probably the best job. No flattery, but probably does the best job of getting back to those people quickly, is our Chancellor, which is a masterful skill set. So I think it's a reflection of who he is as a leader as well, that he is in charge of all 8 campuses and our centers and making sure the things run every day. As well as fielding the community and working with our community leaders and things like that. But when you send him an email that says, hey, would you do this PD session presenting on how you manage your inbox and communicate well, he says, sure, let's pick a date. And you have tremendous respect for a leader that makes that kind of time. And hopefully you learn before most of us have learned as professors and staff how to communicate well by email and to manage your time well. So Chancellor Castillo is in his 3rd year as the Lone Star College System Chancellor. Prior to that, he was our General Counsel, Chief Operations Officer, all the things. He is, and I'll let him share a little bit, a first-generation college student as well, as so many of you may know that. But I get the pleasure of meeting with him at least once a month and getting to pick his brain about the way things work here and share information, and he responds, I think, incredibly well by just listening, right? So with that, it's my great pleasure to not take any more time from the Chancellor. Welcome, Chancellor, to our campus, and welcome from all these students and staff that work here.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. So just full disclosure, my eye is really bothering me. I can't even drive right now. Nathaniel had to drive me. And so that's why I'm like hiding from the lights, because it's hurting really bad actually. But I wanted to make sure not to cancel. So the lesson here is don't fall asleep with your contacts that's the first lesson. Don't fall asleep with your contacts, because this is the price you pay. All right, so let me start with this, right? One of the things that's really interesting is whenever I see people on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or now I guess it's called X, or the Insta, the Gram, talking about all the books that they've read, because my first thought is, can I get you to read your email? Like, that's really, like, I see people like, I've read all these books, I'm like, that's amazing. Can I get you to read your email? And I can tell you that there's no greater indicator of success from my perspective than someone who reads their email. Like, it really is like that important of a thing. Like, can I get you to read your email? And some of the best administrators that I know, they have even better response times than I have, and some of the not so best ones, you're lucky if you get a response 1 or 2 weeks later. And so I want to sort of take you to sort of how operationally this affects a situation. If you create a standard where, as the cabinet member, which is what I was before I was the chancellor, I'm going to get back to you within 48 hours of every single email, right? So on Monday, someone sends me an email. By Tuesday, I've gotten back to them. On Wednesday, the person who works for me can get back to their person. By Thursday, that person has the information. By Friday, they're doing the thing. Now, put that side by side by someone that takes a week to get back to you. Even if you're doing the exact same thing, my division is going to outperform yours, because information is flowing up and down and side to side faster than it is in your division. And so even if we are performing at the exact same level, my division, which is going to communicate faster than yours, is going to outperform yours because we're communicating faster. right? And by the way, the same is true of whether it's email, Slack, WebEx, Teams, whatever, because the same discipline that comes into answering and reading your emails will go into answering those messages. So before you post the image that says these are all the books that I've read, make sure that your email inbox is at least manageable. Because I can tell you, I come in some people's office sometimes and I can see, because I usually have pretty good eyesight, I can see their computer and then I see the inbox and I see 4 or 5 digits. I'm like, you like to live life on the edge. Like, I can't imagine having 1,000 emails. Like, it bothers me, right? Like on my cell phone, when I see missed calls, I got to get rid of the little red circle because it bothers me, right? On my email, it bothers me. On text message, there's some people that have like 300 voicemails that they haven't listened to and like 1,000 phone calls, and I'm like, how, right? So how many emails, students, do you guys think I get a day? Let's start there. How many do you think I get a day? If you had to guess. How many? 50? No, I usually get 50 like in 30 minutes. I get somewhere, yes, how about you? I get about 800 a day. Yeah, 800 a day. So I am a power email user. In fact, I'll tell you that years ago when I was a COO, the CIO came to see me and asked me for my preferences for email. And they're like, you're the system's biggest user. And that was even before I became the chancellor. Like, you're the system's bigger user. You get most of the bot emails. You get most of people's emails. We ran a report, and you are actually getting more emails than anybody else in the system. How do you like how we run the email system? Because you are the biggest user. And so what I did is I wanted to make sure that whatever I helped y'all with was really, really practical. So I actually, a few days ago, I didn't check my email for about an hour and a half, and I had about 215 emails in an hour and a half. And so I literally sat down and I said, okay, because one of the things that I wanted to teach you is that once you have the discipline, you don't need the checklist, you just intuitively do the thing. And so you actually take for granted, it becomes muscle memory, like running, swimming, riding a bike. Like, you don't have to tell yourself when you're riding a bicycle, I need to stay balanced, you just stay balanced, right? So eventually your email discipline will get to the same level. And so I had about 210 emails after about an hour and a half. And so I wanted to show you guys this. So this is usually what my email inbox will look like now. To protect the innocent and the guilty, this is not actually my email inbox, because I've learned the hard way when I'm giving email presentations that like the thing pops up down there and it's like, hey, we're getting ready to fire this person, right? And then it'll pop up over there. And so lesson number 2, if you're gonna give a presentation on your email, make sure you don't actually use your email. So this is a dummy account that was set up for me by OTS, so thank you. So the first thing that I want to sort of show you is this is exactly what it looks like. And to Professor Colby's point, there's people that like literally imagine that like how soul crushing it is that you're like, I got down to 0. And then like you come back the next day and it's 995, right? Like this is the days of emails essentially. And especially, for example, I tend to email the entire system a lot. So that's 8,000 to 10,000 people on average. And even if people just respond, thank you, thumbs up, literally my email will be like a Twitter feed that is just like, right? Like it'll literally just, like I can't click it fast enough to essentially read it. And so the first thing that I've done is I've actually created separate email inboxes. So mario.k.castillo@lonestar.edu is what I consider my main sort of personal email. Then down here, just like I have right here, this one says LSC presentation, I'll have LSC contracts@lonestar.edu. Then I have LSCHR@lonestar.edu. And so I have to sign essentially most of the large scale contracts. So instead of having legal send emails here to this inbox, they have their own inbox that I go in, and basically all it is please sign all these things. And then HR has its own inbox too. That's basically, I need you to sign all these promotions, all these hires, all of that. So literally the first thing that I do every time is I make sure that those inboxes are clear. I start with the legal one, and then I move over. And so if I keep up with it, that's usually about 10 to 15 contracts a day. And so I have to read those 10 to 15 contracts now. As Professor Colby explained, I am a licensed attorney and I maintain it. And so I'm used to reading a bunch of stuff. In fact, I'll tell you this story. When they asked my daughter at school what her dad did, my daughter said, my dad reads a bunch of books that people don't want to read, and then the people that don't want to read the books pay him for reading the books. That's fundamentally what it means to be a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen. In a nutshell, you're reading all the books that people don't want to read, and then they pay you for having read them. Okay, so the first thing that I do then is I take care of the legal contracts because, and this goes really sort of fundamental thing when you check the email, you have to organize your email in a way that says, how am I going to have the greatest effect, or some people would say impact, as quickly as possible? Right? So contracts, for example, by the time they get to me, sometimes they take weeks, months, a year. And so literally the last thing that people are waiting is for the chancellor to sign the contract so that they can do the thing, which is why I start there. Because as soon as I sign the contract, they can literally start the work. Then I move to sort of HR. And in HR, it's usually we want a new position. We want to hire these folks. Background checks came back. There's a felony. What do you want to do with it? Like those kind of things, right? And so then I take care of the HR emails. Then after that, I come down to this albatross of a process. Now, the first thing that I did, I'll tell you, when I was COO, so I was a chief operating officer here for 7 years. When I was COO, I prided myself that I could get to zero every single day. Like every single day when I walked away from my email, it said zero. When I became the chancellor, I realized it was physically impossible and it wasn't advisable. And I'm going to tell you why it wasn't advisable. Sometimes getting to zero is not smart. And let me tell you why. One of the things that I learned the hard way is if I'm reading your email and you're the 900th email that I've read for the day, I'm probably tired. I'm probably cranky, and I've read a bunch of nonsense, and then you come out with your shenanigans, and then you don't know that I've read because you get 3 emails a week. I get 900, right? And so when I respond, you don't have the context for, man, he's getting like 1,000 of these things, and I'm like, but even like one sentence replies, yes, approved. I think to myself, I'm doing really well. I'm answering the person's email, right? And the feedback that I get is, all I got was approved. It hurt my feelings. I'm like, imagine the person that got denied, right? Imagine the person that got denied. And so one of the things that I learned is people need what I call their flavor text, right? Thank you so much. It's an incredibly important project. Thank you for all your work. Please approve. And so one of the things that I learned is I have to figure out who are the people that just want their thing. Like as soon as I say approve, they're going to be happy and they're going to go on to do their thing. And who are the people that I have to like give them the flavor text, right? And so what I learned as the chancellor is there's some people that I got to hold off until the next day because I'm not going to be able to sort of give them the 2 or 3 sentences because I'm just trying to move through the email, right? And so the first thing is I got rid of all of the automated messages, right? So if you go to, so what I'll do, for example, to use this, and I'm sorry guys, it hurts to look at this screen, believe it or not. And so what I go is you right click on the email and then you go to rules right here and then you can create a rule, right? And so what I'll do is, I'll say every email that comes from iStar, put it in this folder, right? And for those of you who don't know what iStar is, it's our PeopleSoft application. For students, it's My Lone Star, right? And so, what's happening? Oh, thank you. Can y'all give my executive assistant a round of applause? Look at that. Thank you, Nathaniel. Also a former student for those of you that are like, who does this man hire? I really only hire former students, and Nathaniel's actually from LSC Montgomery, and he's been my executive assistant now for 6 years, right, Nathaniel? Year 6, okay. All right, thank you, Nathaniel, very helpful. All right, so all of the automated emails where like I'm just being notified of something, right? Like one of the things that'll happen is in approval trees, for example, for whatever reason, PeopleSoft will tell you like all these people approved. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't care. Like once it gets out of my inbox, I'm like, why are you emailing me to tell me that someone downstream approved it? I don't care. I don't need a second email telling me this thing, right? And so I have all of my automated like someone somewhere did something going to their own folder. So I have a PeopleSoft folder, I have a ServiceNow folder, and I go in there only when I'm bored, right? Which is never, right? And so, and I figured out through trial and error, because sometimes Nathaniel will come into my office and say, Chancellor, someone hasn't gotten their thing. Are you purposely ignoring it, purposely holding it, or did it go into like an inbox that you don't know? And I'll go in there and check. But I can tell you that 99.8% of all the emails that go into these folders, we never hear from again, right? And so, so that's about probably 200 to 300, right? That just automatically go in there and then they don't come in here. And so rules are really important, guys. If that's one of the first takeaways that you take, it's the rules part. Learn, like you can create rules where like if this person emails me, it goes to this folder. So for example, before I was the chancellor, all of my chancellor emails, whenever Dr. Head would email me, they would go to a specific folder, right? So they wouldn't get lost in all of my email. I would say, create a rule. Emails from this sender always go to this folder, and then I would open that folder, and that's why Dr. Head always got sort of priority one on anything that he would send me. And so really rules are sort of really important. So once you sort of get an idea, and I'm going to be very honest because this is the trust tree, right? There are certain humans that like I've got to be in the right mindset, right? And I'm the CEO, so if you think that when you become the CEO, these humans disappear, they do not. So there are some people that I know myself, I know this human, and I'm like, I got to be in the right mindset when I get an email from this person. So I have inboxes, literally, if you come over here to the left, my inbox, when you open up my inbox like this, I've shown you kind of a mock-up. I have 0, 1, 2, all the way to like 99. And so these are ranks, right? So trustees, chancellor's cabinet are the people that work directly for me and with me, and then associate vice chancellors have theirs, and then vice presidents have theirs. And so then within those, every person has their own folder, right? So one of the things that helps with this is whenever you say, I sent you a folder, I'm like, okay, let me go check. And people are always like, how can you find the email? Because I'm looking for your emails from you, right? So if Bob Dole was to email me and be like, I sent you an email, I just go into Bob Dole's email inbox and I'm like, here it is. The last time I heard from you was like 6 months ago. I have no such email from you. Likewise, for example, I have rules that some people just go into folders because let's say that I don't want to deal with John Doe unless I'm in the right mood, right? I had my little coffee, came into my office, I slept well the night before, I'm like feeling good, it's a vibe. I'm like, okay, I'm as positive as I can be. Well, let me go read this person's shenanigans, right? And that's the thing, like it's really, like y'all laugh, but this is really important. Emotional regulation is really important, right? So if you know, like every time I read an email from this person, and you don't have to read an email from that person, it's like when you go to the doctor, right? Like my eye hurts right now, and I can imagine I go to the doctor, when does it hurt? When I poke it. Well, stop poking it, right? The same thing. Oh, this person annoys me when I read their emails. Well, don't read their email then, right? I got to, I can't help myself. Well, then you got only yourself to blame. So I'm telling you that there are some folks, for whatever reason, sometimes you want to prioritize people, sometimes you want to deprioritize people. Rules really are important with an Outlook, okay? And so then the first thing that I do then is I come up here, and I actually, believe it or not, I had to go to a conference to learn this little trick and pay money. Most of you are getting this for free. And some of you in the audience are actually getting paid to get this little tip. I see y'all employees. So here you go. Here we go. All right. So where's the, okay. It's right up here. Can you guys see that? That guy right there, clean up. Clean up right there. It's right under the send. Okay. So right under send, if you hit clean up and you hit clean up folder, don't show this message again, it'll clean up the folder. And you see there, I lost like 3. But people, for whatever reason, love copying me on their emails. I don't know why. please don't copy me on your emails. Most of the time, it just aggravates me, right? Because a CC usually is like, when you bring in the CEO of the company, it's usually not to be better together, right? It's usually not. It's like you're having an argument, and then I come in at the 9th email, and I'm like, what is this? Now I got to read the 9 emails. Then I realize that you're just being uncharitable and copy me. Then I get aggravated. Then I'm like, why do I have to deal with it? You see what I'm saying? And so most of the time when I get CC'd, and then the people respond back and forth. So what that does is if you have an email chain, let's say that myself, Nathaniel, Professor Colby, we're emailing each other, right? And the emails are going back and forth. Now we've got 9 emails, right? When you hit clean up there, it'll turn it into 1 email, and then it'll trash the other 8. The other 8 go into your deleted items, and that way you just got to read the 1. And it's really helpful because when you're reading the chain, depending on how your view is, like you see here, this view is by date. So I don't know if you guys know, but you can actually sort. If you go here, you can sort by date, you can to, from, and I'm gonna talk about some of those later, but my default is date. Sometimes if it's from to or subject, or some people do subject, you don't even know who the last person is. And so when you don't do the send thing, you're trying to figure out who was the last person to email on the chain, right? And as someone who's done litigation, let me tell you, I've had entire lawsuits where like the person thought they were reading the latest email and they weren't because they missed sort of the latest response. So the way that you sort of get away from all of that is if you go to clean up there, it'll compress, essentially in this case, 9 emails to 1. And so I can tell you that sometimes, especially when you have one of these emails that just won't die and it's like 15 people, like a group text, where you're like trying to do something. Like for me, it's usually I'm running and I get added to a group text. And every time a text comes in, and then I just get aggravated because I'm like, I can't even respond to you. Take me off the group text, right? Sadly, at work, you can't do that, right? And so what you want to do is you want to compress the emails. And I can tell you that when you get 1,000 emails, you can easily lose 50 to 100 just like that. And you're not losing content, you're just not having to click open over and over. Now, can anyone guess why I have them numbered like this, 0, 1, 2? Any email power users? Do you know why? Anyone? Because they're all numbered. Why? No, it's not importance. That's why they're ranked that way, but that's not why they're numbered that way. What? Back there? Right. So let me tell you, that's right. So when you open up your email through the email app on a phone, it prioritizes them by alphabetic, and then it's also numbers. So that's how I make sure that trustees is 0, even though it's a T. The trustees are at the very top of my email. So again, when I'm sorting email then, because the AI in a phone, you can move message, it'll learn move message from Michael Stoma, for example, who's one of our trustees, it'll learn move it to trustees folder, right? So I'm sitting on my phone just cleaning my email inbox, moving it into 0, right? When you ask me if I ran into you randomly, hey, can you pull up this email? Okay, who are you? Where are you in the hierarchy? Boom, okay, I open up on my phone, I scroll, I find exactly the folder, and then I'm able to pick up the email from you. And so the reason that there's numbers is so that when the app in an iPhone picks it up, they're in that order, okay? So, all right. So when you compress like that, you clean up. So I went from 210 to 165 just by compressing, okay? So that's 50 less emails that I have to like click and then scroll and figure out. So then the next thing that I do, ladies and gentlemen, is I go and I hit by date here and I do from. And now they're organized by the person. And then I always start at the very top. Now let me tell you this. This is what you have to avoid. A disciplined approach requires discipline. So like, let me give you an example where I learned that from. When I first graduated from law school, I went to go work for a federal judge. And a lot of my peers, my job at working for this federal judge was to write his legal opinions for him, or draft them rather, for him to review and then issue them. And so a lot of my peers would, a T3 came in, Title III search warrant, which is like the sexy work, right? Like that's the stuff that you see on TV where you're like, I'm gonna get to cite the Fourth Amendment. And so you're like all amped. This is for law nerds only, folks. Like if the rest of you are like, what's going on? Like, gotta be a law nerd, right? And so if you're a law nerd, you're like, man, I'm gonna get to do this sexy Fourth Amendment thing. And so you gravitate to that. Or a First Amendment case, right? So for example, those of you that have ever been to South Padre Island and you've never seen a billboard, you're welcome, right? Because I'm the one that drafted the opinion that banned billboards from South Padre Island down in the valley, right? It was a First Amendment commercial speech case. And people sued saying that they should be able to put up billboards on the beach. And we were like, no, it'll ruin the beach. And it was this beautiful First Amendment thing. Another sort of really interesting case that I had was I had a gentleman who was killed by the police department because they invaded his house, and it turns out they had mental health issues, and he didn't realize that this were the police, and the police thought he was somebody else, and they ended up killing him, and it was completely the wrong person. So you can see how like those cases are really interesting, right? And then you get the student loan case, this person won't pay the student loan, right? And I got student loans, so I'm like, okay, you're going to the back because I'm gonna help the student out for at least another month or two. We are not gonna rule on this, right? Yeah, because by the way, when you don't pay your student loans, eventually, yeah, you get sued and there's repo possessions and they have to come to federal court to sort of get the order to take your assets. And so the point of all of this is there's always gonna be interesting work to do. And what you have to do is you have to develop the discipline to do the work in the sequence in which it comes in. And so, for example, in the federal court, I didn't gravitate to those cases. I would literally organize my opinions by the civil action number. So civil action number 99 went before 100, went before 101, went before 102, and I just methodically worked at it. And I started developing the discipline where, yes, I know that 115 is down there and I'm super amped about getting down there, but I gotta take care of 99 through 114. Email's the same way, so when you sort it, I always start at the very top. So the A's, right? The people, the Aarons in the room, you're at the very top, right? And so I work my way from the very top to the bottom of the email. And so what I'm doing in the first brush is this spam? That's literally what I'm doing. I'm just like scrolling. I'm literally like scrolling and I'm like, why? Okay, is this spam? No, thank you. I don't want to buy a timeshare. No, I do not want to buy a franchise. I barely know how to do the job that I have. And so then here's a really key part. You have to right click and then I block. I go in here and I block sender, right? Because if you just delete them, folks, if you just delete them instead of going down to block sender, then they're going to hit you up forever. And the name of the game is I'm trying to get to 0, right? So you have to actually do something with the spam. You can't just delete it. It's almost like a weed in the yard. You know, if you mow it, you fool yourself and maybe your wife or your husband or your partner, but the weed is still there, right? And it'll grow back. Spam's the same way. You have to really sort of ban it to get rid of it. And so that's the next thing that I do. And so then what happens next then is then I go now, after all the spam is gone, which by the way, for me, that afternoon, it was 121 is how much I had left. So about 60 emails, I think. 60 emails were just spam. And I'm really overzealous with the spam, by the way. I've like deleted things and people are like, hey, I invited you to my little luncheon and you never responded. And I'm like, hey, sorry, thought you were spam, right? So anyway, so just be overzealous with it. And so I start with the trustees. So I'll scroll through. So I have a list of the trustees. And so I'll start literally with the chair. Chairman Sullivan is the first. Okay, do I have any emails from Chairman Sullivan? Then any emails from the trustees, right? And then why do I start there? Let me be really clear. It's not because I believe these people are the most important. It's the people who I believe if I do the thing that they need to do will have the biggest trickle-down effect. right? So if a trustee is asking me, hey, what do you think about this policy, Chancellor? A policy affects 8,000 employees, 100,000 students, right? So again, when you're sitting down to do the email, are you going to answer an email that's going to help 2 people or an email that's going to help 10,000? That's why, right? And so then I moved to Chancellor's Cabinet. And the reason I moved to Chancellor's Cabinet next is exactly that. So that day, from trustees, to show you, the trustees are busy. For those of you that think that they let me YOLO, they don't. So I went from 106 to 80. So I had 26 trustee emails in an afternoon. You gotta remember there's 9 of them. And they all pretend the others don't exist, right? As it should be. And so if one of them sends 10 emails, they don't know that the other 8 are sort of sending their own 10, right? So that's actually really common. And so the first Chancellor's Cabinet member, if you had a guess, of all the executives that work for me and with me, which one do you think is the one that I should be the most concerned about if they email me? Guess? Students? Who? Not Dr. Nutt. Sorry, Dr. Nutt. A for effort, extra credit to that person. It's not Dr. Nutt. Who? The legal person. The lawyers, right? Because the lawyers usually, they're not sending me emails to tell me, great job, Chancellor, you're killing it. It's usually, here's the situation, right? We've got someone doing something that they shouldn't have been doing or something that they should have been doing, and either way, it's causing legal issues. And so legal is the very first person that I sort of review. The next person is, okay, if I'm not getting sued, what is the next person? The money, right? Finance, right? So the CFO is, y'all laughing? Don't laugh. Think about it like this with your life, right? In your life, there are people that are just higher priority, right? They have a greater effect, whether it's your parents, your professors, right? So if I were y'all, I would create rules for emails from my professors, right? Emails from my parents. Although my parents don't have the patience to email me, they just call, right? And so think about that, as you're prioritizing your email, who are the emails that are gonna make or break you? Department of Ed emails, you can go look up, what's the extension, the URL for Department of Ed, and add those. If you're on FAFSA, right? If you have a FAFSA, if you have some from Student Life, you can create rules to where those go to a high priority folder. And so once I know that we're not getting sued any more than we should be, or that we're not going to go bankrupt, now the next person that I go to is the Executive Vice Chancellor of Academics, who is Dr. Keshvala, because she oversees all of our colleges. Then once I go through her, then I have the presidents. And then Dr. Nutt would be in that group, right? If I have any emails from Dr. Nutt. And so Dr. Nutt will tell you that's why you get all your emails from me at one time, right? Because you'll get all of your stuff at one time. Now, let me give you a trick that I learned when I was a COO. So when I was a COO, I had colleagues that didn't answer their emails. Now, one of the things that I always tell students is you have to take extreme ownership in communication, right? So if I'm trying to communicate with you and I can't get my communication across because you don't answer your emails, because you just don't believe in emails, you're lazy, you're clocked out, you're YOLOing, you're playing golf, whose fault is it if I can't communicate with that person? Mine, right? Mine. I take extreme ownership in my communication. So here's what I did. I will sit there and I will send you email after email, then I'll draw little charts, and I will figure out when is it that this person answers their emails. So I collected 6 months of data once, and I put it through the AI machine, because yes, I use AI. I put the AI, I said, can you tell me when does this person answer most of my emails? And so if I'm going through my email and I know that it's 9 a.m. and you're not gonna answer my email until 4 p.m., then I'm gonna push you, because it doesn't matter if I write it at 9 a.m. or noon or 3 p.m., you're not gonna read it till 4 p.m. And I have little charts with people's names on them, and I know this is when they check their email. And then I send the email right when I think that they're gonna be at their computer, and it goes up to the very top, because there's a lot of people that have no discipline, and all they do is answer the last 5 emails and just hope that somehow the other emails disappear, right? Somehow OTS or IT is gonna do something and these emails are gonna disappear. And I'll tell you that the board asked me, y'all think this is crazy, the board of trustees asked me how I managed email in my interview. And that's the answer that I gave them. I said, and they're like, how do you communicate with people that don't answer emails? I go, what do you mean? I figure it out. Like, I know the one person that checks their email once a week, and I know what day that is and what time, and I send the email that I need from them at that point. Right? And so I go through legal, finance, Dr. Keshvala, then the presidents and the vice presidents, and so on and so forth, all the way down the hierarchy. And so then, and once I get through all of those people, thank you. Once I get through all of those people, ladies and gentlemen, what I do is, some of the last people that I get to be honest with you, are my personal staff. So my chief of staff, and then my executive assistant, okay? And one of the things, to give you an idea of how that progresses, I'll read them to you. So when I got to cabinet, I had 80. By the time I'm done with cabinet and the senior administrators, I'm down to 60. By the time I'm done to personal staff, it's 43. And then I've got 43 left. And then, and here's where most of your emails will pick up. When you sit down and you have your emails, there are emails that you're gonna read them and you're gonna be like, I gotta think about this one, right? Like, I gotta really, this person is up to something. And I've got to really understand what this person's up to. And then, and this is one of the lessons that I learned when I became chancellor. So I'll tell you, most of the days when I'm chancellor, I stop there. Because by the time I get to that point, I'm tired. Right? And I'm like, these 35 people is what I had that day. These 35 people, they need like a full-blown response. So I usually would push them to the next morning. So the next morning, I'll start with those 35, and I'll go through them, and then I'll start answering, and then I'll start up the whole thing that I just told you, right? And what I learned is this: when I was COO, I could just get things out. I've learned now, slow down. Because I've approved some things where someone comes and is like, hey, Chancellor, you approved this like massive thing. And I'm like, what? No, I didn't. And they're like, here's the email. And I was like, oh, I did. I thought I was approving A, but I actually approved A, B, and C. So here's another tip. When you are seeking permission in an email, do not compound questions, right? So let me tell you how this happens. So you're just trying to send one email, right? So you're like, I have this question, paragraph 1, and then you go on and on about sort of paragraph 1, and then you have second request, paragraph 2, and then you get 1 approved. What do you do with that? Because I can tell you what I used to do with that as a CEO and general counsel. I'd be like, I don't know which one the chancellor approved. You got to go back, and you got to get him to say approved as to 1, approved as to 2. I'm not going to assume that he approved both, because for all I know, he didn't read the second paragraph, right? And so don't compound questions in emails, especially to senior executives. Right? And you want to write the email, by the way. We have an hour, right, Professor Colby? Okay, so we want to make sure that when you write the email, you write it in a way where you get what you want and just walk away. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, hey, Chancellor, here's the problem. Thank you. What do I need you for? Right? Like, if you're just going to give me a problem, just have the person send me the problem directly next time. Like, what do I need you for? What I'm looking for is, here's the problem, here's my proposed solution, here's how I'm gonna manage it. All I need from you is an approved. Approved. Denied. See me. My favorite from Dr. Head was PLS, discuss. PLS, discuss meant no. Like, I knew as soon as I saw from Dr. Head a PLS, discuss, I was like, never mind, sir, thank you. Right? Because I knew it was no, but he didn't want to say no for whatever reason in the public record, right? And so don't compound questions like that, because again, if the goal with emails, you want to get in and out, right? So think about it. If I'm getting 1,000 emails and I'm spending 15 seconds on yours, and you make it easy to where I can respond to you, then you're going to get your response and you're going to be able to keep on going. But if we have to keep going back and forth, think about what I just said. If I send you an email and you send me back another question, you get bumped to the next day. Right? Like, you're just going to get bumped because by the time you respond, I'm already 5 emails down. Right? And so what you want to do there is you want to weigh, is this something that I could write 1 word, 1 sentence, and get it out? And what I call those quick outs. Like, can I get it quickly out? Right? And so a lot of times When you have when I have 35, I'll have 15, 20 that are quick outs, and then I just got the 15 that are like the ones where I got to write paragraphs. And by the way, for those of you that are uninitiated, I can put together quite the tune, right? Like quite the tune in an email, right? Like I can throw down 15 paragraphs quite easily. So if you write me a long email, you better expect a long one back most of the time, right? Yeah, tit for tat, I retaliate. So, anyway, so that day I had 30 that I had thoughtful responses or action items, right? Where I've got to do something, I've got to call somebody, I've got to schedule a meeting, I've got to get debriefed. And by the way, those 30, a lot of times what it is reports. It's here's the information that you asked for. So here's this really novel concept that I'm going to introduce you to. When you ask someone for a report, you read the report. I know some of you are laughing, but there's an entire corporate culture where it's like, if I asked for the report, I did something. No, you didn't. The key is to read the report. And I'll tell you, now I watch out for people like me, because I'm going to tell you a little story. So I always used to test who would read my reports by putting something completely insane in the middle of them, right? So I would send a report, and I would be like, oh, yeah, so I went hunting, and I killed a duck, and then the duck attacked me, and I got taken by UFOs, and I'm kind of asking you, what do I do next time I get abducted by aliens? See attached, right? And people would be like, excellent report, Mr. Castillo. So now I watch out for that, right? And so I try to read all the reports. And so usually by the time I get to this point too, I have a stack of reports that I've got to read, or summaries or things of that nature. And so then I literally usually depending on what the reports are, I'll read the reports or I'll answer to the emails, but then I'll push them to the next day. And this is where you have to be really comfortable with and it bothers me. It still does, ladies and gentlemen. It bothers me, like my task list, it bothers me to see. And let me tell you how I do it and how I can tell. When I'm going through this, the way I'm saving them to tell myself this is something that you're going to deal with later, I just hit this flag, right? And so eventually my email will look just like this. It'll just be all flags, right? Like that. And then I'll do by date. And then when they're all flagged, then I go to the oldest one first. And that's who I deal with first, the person who's been waiting the longest. And then I move up to the next one and the next one until essentially I haven't had zero in probably 2 or 3 weeks. And that's how joyous of an event it is for me. When I hit to zero, I'm like, there's a little extra pep in my step and I'm all happy. And then someone ruins it 10 seconds later, right? And so that's essentially the presentation that I have. I have 15 minutes for questions. Anyone have any questions? If not, questions?
Okay, questions.
Here we go.
When you use the cleanup folder button and it compresses the emails, what does it do to the attachments?
That's actually a really good question. I think I've never lost the attachment, so I think it pushes it to the last one, but now I'm gonna have to check. Maybe I've been missing attachments all this time. I'm gonna write that down now, actually. You made me paranoid. Let me write, yeah. I'm gonna do that. Hold on. Okay. I'm here to learn too, folks. I gotta get my guess worth. Okay, let's see here. What happens? I believe they're there. All right, next time.
Chancellor, do you have a tip on subject lines? Since you do so much by sender, we've talked here, like if you send me something, don't make the subject line quick question.
Correct.
Because when I'm going back to look for it, I've got 50 quick questions. Do you have a tip on that?
So when I used to work for Dr. Head, we had an agreement that essentially I would always have a word before the semicolon, right? So it would either be request for approval and then whatever it was about, or just for your information, or follow-up. One thing that I did with Chancellor Head a lot was first follow-up, second follow-up, third follow-up, right? So he knew, like, this is the third time now that I'm asking you for this, so we need to do that. So yeah, I do recommend that. One of the things that I lean on really is I have really good memory, and I have a really good photogenic memory. So usually if I can remember like 1 or 2 words in your email, I can go in there and find it. But really, most of the time when you're looking for an email, you're looking for an email not on subject, but on the person, right? So-and-so brought up this email. And that's why I've experimented with a lot of different ways of doing it. And I found that for me, at least, the person is usually where I want to be. But subject helps a lot. Yes, please approve. And then what it's about. The worst is no subject, right? Like when an email comes across no subject, I think you're an absolute savage. Right? Right? And the other thing, guys, like you got to remember, like when you start an email, it has to be like a letter. Hello, so-and-so. I am this person. This is what I need from you. I hope you have a wonderful day, comma, your name. One of my favorite emails that I ever got from a student was literally yo in the subject line. That's all it said was yo. So I responded, what up? He was like, I was at the thing. What thing? Right? It took like a week to figure out, right? So if you're at this thing, don't start with subject yo, right? Say, hey, I was at Professor Colby's event. I have a follow-up question. But yeah, just make sure, because believe it or not, even that goes a long way. Because I'm gonna match your energy. So if you just come at me with like your one demand, that's not gonna be good. So that's a good question. Yes, sir. Anyone else?
There's one right there.
How do you manage your time, like your personal life, outside of answering emails? Like not in like a email being your life, but like
Where are you? Oh, there you are.
right
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Sorry,
I only have one eye and it's dark.
I get that.
Because I asked for them, by the way, to darken it.
But
How
like,
do I manage my personal time?
yeah, because like at least how you're saying you get like about 800 emails a day. I know that like a lot of them probably would be spam, but like for the really important ones that you have to dedicate time to, do you like block out your time for, or how do you make
So I
sure you
usually
manage
block
it?
out. So yeah, that whole process, thank you. That was an excellent question, because I actually had the timestamps of how long. It took 43 minutes the day that I did that. So it takes about 43 minutes, 45 minutes to do the process that I've explained to you over the last hour. I have and Dr. Nutt can attest to this, I don't send emails out after 5, and I don't send them on the weekends at all. So like from 8 to 5, yeah, like I'm like, but literally like at 5:01, I'm like, shut it down, right? Because I understand that if I send down an email as a CEO, I can disrupt an entire sort of chain of people, right? Because if I send Dr. Keshvala a note, Dr. Keshvala will send it to Dr. Nutt, Dr. Nutt will send it to Dr. Wade will send it, and now you've got like 6 people, right, who I'm disrupting, so I'm very conscious of that. So, great question. Another thing to do is when you have an email, let's see if I can do it here, a delay, this is, sorry, I can barely see now. Oh no, you have to have the actual email. So if you have email, then you have, I'm so used to like my own options, request, here he is, delay delivery right there. That is your friend, right? So if you want to work at night, perfect, because you know that's how, use the delay send option. And I'll tell you, at 8, a lot of my folks, I get like this mountain of emails coming in at 8 a.m. Because they're working in the evening at night, because that's what's best for them. But I'm really good about sort of line. And again, one of my favorite quotes from a book, called Extreme Ownership, is discipline is freedom. Right? If I'm at work and I'm handling my business during work, then at 5 I get to go home and I get to do whatever it is that I want to do. But the key is you have to have the discipline to do what you need to do when you need to do it, right? Because for most of your life that will be more than enough. The problem is when you don't have discipline, you don't study, like for example, the people that wait till the last minute before an exam, those people grow up and they become executives that read the report the day before the meeting. And I can tell the difference between someone that was reading the report last night at the last second and someone that spent a week sort of really learning the material, right? And so you start developing that habit, and I can tell you that I enjoy my nights and weekends. I engage in a lot of shenanigans that have nothing to do with Lone Star College. but it's because I have the discipline to take care of my business when it's time to take care of my business. And I don't goof off at work really ever.
Excuse me. Got one back here.
My name is Julio Doria. I'm the SGA rep for the Honor Society.
Yes,
And we have some projects and stuff that we have to send you emails for approval. So my question was like, what criteria are you looking for when you're approving stuff? What kind of stuff are you approving? Are you looking for like 1, 2, and 3, or is there not really like a set criteria? You're just kind of
No, so this is what I'm looking for: a thoroughness, thoughtfulness. Because I can tell you, especially when I first became chancellor. And by the way, I checked my watch because it's this OCD thing. I used to be a private lawyer and I sold my time in 6-minute increments. And so it's been beat into me to like keep track of minute by minute, which is part of the reason I don't goof off either, because you can't bill goofing off. Well, you shouldn't. But ideas are a dime a dozen. Like I could literally get 100 ideas in this room. What separates sort of the things that I approve from the things that I don't approve is the person that takes the idea and says, how would I actually do this? So how much will it cost? Do you have an idea of how much it'll cost? Right? So I can tell you the last time I was in this room, we had an alum who I actually just heard from Boston University, who was actually the moderator here the last time that I was here. And then we had another student who had a proposal for the gym. And one of the things that really stuck out from Estrella, right? Estrella's presentation is that she had exactly the count of what it would cost to do the thing that she wanted to do. And so it's easy for me, just like email. You want to do this, here's where your heart is, here's what you're trying to do, this is how much it costs, you've already sort of priced it out, do it. As opposed to, Chancellor, I have this idea, what do you think? I think it's a great idea, but everyone has great ideas, right? Like ideas they're not special. Everyone has an idea. What makes a proposal valuable is that you've thought it out of how you're going to operationalize it and how much it's going to cost. Okay? Oh, well, there you go. Perfect. For those of you to know, Jocko Wilk is the person who wrote Extreme Ownership.
As someone who's transitioning from high school and is normally used to using Gmail, how would you suggest to transition to
So
one?
I transitioned from Lotus Notes, because I worked for the federal government, to Microsoft Outlook. And you just got to get in there. You know, one of the advantages that you have that I didn't is you have YouTube, right? So you can go on YouTube and like literally you can learn how to do anything on YouTube. And so you just have to, here's the thing, throughout life, if you do life right, there's always gonna be something at work that you don't know how to do. But what's really impressive is the people who figure it out, right? And so you live in 2025 in this amazing country that's not perfect, but you have all these amazing resources. And what I'm looking for is this gonna be somebody that figures it out, right? And so if you figure it out, that's a skill. See, don't look at the skill as not knowing how to do Outlook. Look at the skill as I don't know how to use Outlook. I've used Gmail and I learned how to use Outlook. Because then when Outlook goes by the wayside and you go to Google Docs, for example, or something else, I can count on that skill then to transition to that. It's the adaptability. And there's a great book called Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Taleb that talks about how when we're presented with chaos, we don't want to be fragile, but the opposite of fragile is not strong, it's anti-fragile. It means that you thrive in chaos. And that's really what you want from something like that.
I had another question. So I know you said that whenever you have like an email, not to ask like a bunch of questions, right? To compound them.
Don't compound them if you're seeking one approval.
But if you do have multiple questions, how would like you suggest like it be formatted then, like in the paragraphs or?
Yeah, so I think I would start with multiple, going back to Dr. Nutt's question, right? In the subject line, multiple questions, semicolon, regarding da-da-da-da-da. So that whoever's reading it knows it's not just the first question and then I just move on. So I would put multiple questions, semicolon, what it's about. Then you're giving the person notice, I have multiple questions. Because what happens a lot of times is if you put the question, for example, at the end of the first paragraph, I answer your question, I'm like, okay, I gave her what she wanted. But there you have subsequent questions and you got to write back and be like, there's more questions. And now you're at the back of my queue again, right? So you just have to give people notice on the front end. Okay? And then try to get answers asked to every. So one of the things that I do, for example, is I'll go 1, yes, 2, no, 3, maybe, 4, need more information, right? And so that's the kind of answer you want, so that, because usually when you're trying to get approval for something, it's not for you, it's because you want to take that document and give it to somebody and be like, see, they approved, right? So again, if you take ownership in the communication, I want to make sure that this person has no reason to tell me no. So I had 4 questions. Chancellor, can you answer 1, approved as to 1, approved as to 2, approved as to 3, and approved as to 4, because I need 4 approvals to do my thing, right? And that's what you want to get, as opposed to just asking the 4 questions and then I hand approved, and then you show up to someone like me that's like, nah, that's not going to be good enough. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm sorry.
Dang, that row showed up. All right.
So I know you said that you wanna like end your you start work at 8 and you end at 5. You don't want to do anything after that.
Mm-hmm.
I try to like keep my lifestyle the same way, but what if you receive an email from someone like important at that end of the day, and you know that you need an immediate response? Do you still go ahead and like email them, or do you just wait until like your next time of work?
So I can tell you, I've worked for people like that, right? I worked at a private law firm, and every client thinks that every time they're getting sued and investigated, the world is ending, and that's not the case, except for a few of them. So it just depends on what the norms are, right? Just be really intentional, like, hey, when you send me emails at night, do you expect me to respond to them? I mean, just ask, right? And some people be like, no, that's just the time that I'm working, but I don't know how to use delay messaging. Right? And so I don't expect you to respond. Or some people will say, not unless I ask you to, right? And so again, it goes back to whose responsibility is it to communicate? Yours, right? And so go to your supervisor and say, do you expect me to respond? And that's how I would start. And then if that lifestyle doesn't align with your priorities, then you find yourself a new job. Okay? Yes, sir.
Professor Frey, and then we've got one more student over here.
Dang, way to call her out.
It's okay. Chancellor, would you mind speaking to the legal or the legality of our email as our former general counsel? I think
yes,
that might be important for students to know.
So our emails are public records, right? So there's an entire office called the Public Records Office, the Office of Public Records, where, for example, I can tell you that some mysterious person requests my emails once a month. Right, and so they get all my emails except those that are excluded by law. So yeah, whatever you put in the public record is a public email, and with very limited exceptions. So be really careful what you're putting in these things, right? Like, I've had people say all sorts of things, from their immigration status to admit to criminal conduct to this one time that I was in Cabo and I did this real crazy thing. Like, you don't want that in the public record. Yes, ma'am. So then you can actually unblock them too, or usually in my case, I'll call IT and be like, can you save me from myself? I need you to, it's called whitelisting. You need to whitelist this person for me because I thought they were spam. And I actually just had this situation. Let me tell you a real life situation. It was real embarrassing. So the chair calls me and he's like, hey, a good friend of mine is having this event. He says that he emailed you and you didn't even reply. And I'm like, I thought it was spam. And so he's right, I didn't respond. And now I'm going to the event.
So I have 2 questions.
Go ahead. I'm at work, so I don't have anywhere to be.
I'm gonna block up my emails.
Okay.
But whenever so you said CCing someone is kind of like a kind of passive aggressive sometimes, depending on the situation.
Is usually very passive aggressive. Not always, but usually.
But instead, would you like it to like be forwarded? Also,
that's even worse.
Wait, forwarding is worse?
Because now you're being like secretive.
Well, no, not secretive.
Right? Like I prefer someone be like, boom, I'm CCing your boss, right? And I'd be like, okay, I see you, as opposed to like doing it underhanded, right?
Well, no, because isn't that what BCC is for?
BCC is even like
that's way worse. But no, for forwarding, I just mean like if you have a message that needs to go out to multiple people, instead of just CCing those people, should you just like forward it to all those people?
Yeah, so no. So when I send an email to the entire system, excellent point. When I send out an email to the entire system, you want to BCC the listserv. right? And so usually I'll send it to myself. So by the way, I'm Mario K. Castillo. So if you guys have gotten emails from me, that's how it just says from to Mario K. Castillo. And then in the BCC, I put the listserv. So when you're initiating an email, I don't have the same connotation with the BCC line. It's when you're BCCing someone as part of a conversation and the other person doesn't know it. I do think you start getting into some ethical lines about sort of, why are you BCCing the person? Go ahead and CC them and at least have it out in the open so the person knows. And by the way, there's a way that we can check as lawyers if you BCC'd people, and then that usually goes badly, right? Because nothing is a secret in public record emails, which is Professor Frey's point. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a quick question. Quick question. Yeah, loud. There we go. Obviously what you shared today, very helpful and about organizing and sorting emails.
Mm-hmm.
But do you ever really delete them?
You can't delete them. Right. To the professor's point, you can delete them from your Outlook, but they exist forever, right? I can dig up emails from 15, 16 years ago. Really, the only limitation on digging up emails is time of adoption of computers. But they never get deleted. Even if you delete, and we have this problem all the time, right? So we fire people, and I know we're over, but let me finish this question. We fire people so that people don't do this. So PSA. So people are like, I'm about to get fired, I know, so I'm gonna delete all my emails, show them. We have forensic people that literally can bring everything back, and then we specifically ask, let's see everything that they deleted. And so usually you do us a favor of pointing us in exactly what you didn't want us to look at, as opposed to going through the entire computer. We just go to the stuff that you deleted, because people are usually not even savvy enough to delete all the things, they just delete the guilty things. And one time, I'll tell you, this is a true story. One time we even had where the person had deleted it, and it freaked them out. Because it was at a McDonald's, and we were like, it was at this McDonald's, and we know what you ordered. They're like, how did you know what we ordered? We went to the McDonald's and we mapped the Wi-Fi address, and then we asked for their video cameras, and we can tell that you deleted it. Oh, and by the way, you had a Quarter Pounder with cheese. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Chancellor.